Now we need to peel off the caliper bolts. Sometimes you'll have to use a wrench with them, sometimes you won't. These are a 14. If you're putting on new pads, which you should be, use your favorite pry driver. Give yourself some wiggle room. Pull the caliper back. The piston should come out nice and easily. Now we need to peel off our caliper bracket bolts, which are right back here, and they are a 18. I'm not actually replacing the pads. The reason I'm putting a new rotor on is because of a shimmy. I should, but these are actually OEM pads that have over 140,000 miles on them. And I'm just going to see how long I can get out of them. Here I have an impact driver that's got the correct torque spin on it. On this Equinox, it's a T30. And a general rule of thumb with torque spits is whatever size you think fits, try the size larger, because that's generally the one that it is. Gotta get going the right way first. There we go. Now I live in the south, so my rotor will just pop right off. You know, you may have to give it a little persuasion if you live in a rustier area. Depending on what kind of climate you're in, you may or may not have to clean up the hub face. This one is not bad, but if it was real rusty or you live in an area where they salt the roads a lot, the hub rides on these two rings right here, so you could just hit them with a cookie wheel, clean them up. You know, then after that, maybe hit it with some fluid film or anti-seize, especially around here where the hub, you know, it slides over the hub. We'll clean it up a little bit. I'll show you in a second. And that's really all it takes for where I live is just getting the schmoo off those edges, and I'll be good to go. Alright, even though I'm not doing new pads, I'm going to try to keep these factory pads as long as I can. I am going to clean up the caliper bracket in the same way that you should with new pads. Not as big of an issue here as I've mentioned previously, but what happens is you'll have rust that builds up underneath your hardware. Now, your hardware in good brake pad kits is going to be stainless steel, so it's not going to rust. But if the caliper bracket rusts back behind here, it can cause it to pinch the ears on the pads, locking them in place where they can't slide, and that'll kill your pads real quick. So I'm going to pull this hardware off, probably, maybe. And there is almost no rust here. Normally what I would do, and I'll do it a little bit here, is I'll take a file, clean up get rid of any rust that's here. Again, you're not trying to remove material. You're just trying to clean out the rust. And I know I'm not using the file right, but this is what I'm doing. And again, with this, I recognize that I'm pretty spoiled living in the area that I live in. You know, another thing is you should never have to grind or, you know, trim or anything the ears of good pads. If you're buying quality pads, you know, I mean, obviously I'd like to go OEM where I can. And when I can't, the Advanced Auto, the Wherever, or CarQuest Platinum are pretty good. And they come with, they'll always come with new hardware as well. So clean these up. And you know, if you have a sandblasting cabinet, it's real nice to clean up your ears here in that. Actually, before I put these back on, what I should do is take, this is especially important, like I said, in climates where rust is a concern, is take a little brake caliper grease, a little, and work it in here, just to kind of hold off on that rust, pinching that pad for as long as you can. It's a little much, but that should be all right. And none is going to be needed on this side, just because it's stainless steel. It's not going to rust. So what I'll do is I'll load my pads back in. And like I said, you know, even though these things are dirty and old, you know, these pads are over 7 years old. They still slide nice and free in the bracket, as you can tell. So we'll go take a look at, make sure there's still lube on the pins on the caliper, and then we'll slap her back together with a new rotor. All right, we'll pull out our pins. Being careful not to hurt the boots. You know what I'm actually going to do? That grease is good. I'm not going to risk the chance of getting too much grease in there. Because when you get too much, you run the risk of it not pushing it all the way like it should. It'll actually kind of lock up. And they move nice and free, so I'm not going to worry about it. Set that aside. We'll open up our new rotor, throw her on. Now what I have, this is a coated rotor. It looks like they only coat the hat of the rotor. They don't put anything on the back. Not necessary where I live, but it is what Advanced had, so it's what I bought. And the cheat code with Advanced Auto Parts is if you order online, you can almost always, you can do the order online, pick up in store. You can almost always find a 25, sometimes even 30% off coupon code if you just, Google Advanced Auto coupon code. And then you can, they'll generally have it ready for you within like 30 minutes. And also with their Speed Perks deal, you get, I think, $5 back on every 20 you spend, and you get $20 back on every 100 you spend, something like that. I guess the math works out better if it's 5 on. Nope, that's the same. We'll pretend that never happened. Let's get this bad boy loaded back up. We'll get her in there. I will say that these caliper hardware has lost a little bit of its springiness, so it might be a little bit more difficult to get going. What? From the factory, these caliper bracket bolts will be Loctited. That's your discretion if you want to Loctite them back. I haven't, and I haven't lost one yet. I don't know the torque spec. Consult your factory service manual, but pretty tight should be good enough. Now, one thing is you don't want to get too silly with the caliper bolts because they're not very big. And I gotta hold this bottom when she wants to spin. Now all we have left to do is put the wheel back on. We'll be good to go. Alright, throw this wheel back on now. Put your impact on half an ugga-dugga. Whoop. And don't bind up your wheel like I just did. Now I'm going to let the wheel down some, so I can torque it without having to have somebody. You can have somebody pump on the brakes for it or hold the brakes down. But I will just let this slide down. And this is going to be torqued to 140 foot-pounds American, 190 Newton meters in science. Let my wrench turn on. Star pattern as always. And we'll go back around one more time. All right, and there's your front brakes on a 2011 Equinox. So that's doing your brakes on your 2011 Chevy Equinox, GMC Terrain. I don't know what years are similar or different. I'm sure I forgot a lot. This is the first time I've done a video like this. I'm sure it was bad. Your caliper pin bolts were 14s. The caliper bracket bolts were 18s. The lug nuts on this Equinox are 22s or 7/8, either one. Torque on the lug nuts was 140 foot-pounds. Seems like a lot. That's what they are. They're big lug nuts. And like I said, pay attention, especially if you live in an area that deals with rust. Pay attention to the ears of those caliper slides on, to the stuff behind that hardware, and make sure you replace the hardware, because your pads can end, they can have their life cut dramatically short due to rust and not properly putting the hardware on it. Also, best case scenario where I live in Tennessee. We don't have to deal with rust. We get snow a handful of times a year. No big deal. The caliper, the wheels come off easy. The rotors come off easy. Everything comes off easy. There's no rust. This car is a 2011 with like 140-something thousand miles on it. Those are the original pads and rotors on it. Now, it's mostly highway miles, but, things last a long time. So, sometimes I can take that for granted how easy stuff comes off around here. But anyway, let me know what you think. If you ever have any questions, consult your factory service manual. One last thing. Don't forget to pump up the brakes a few times before you pull the car out of the garage, because it will be exciting if you don't. Give her a couple pumps, you'll be good to go.